Okay, so this question, they wanted us to describe some how to do experiment, and what I've done is just highlight some of the key things for me to think about. So they want us to investigate the effect of doubling the concentration of the acid on the rate of reaction. They also want us to look at will the reaction be more exothermic when we change the concentration, and they want us to do a plan, including apparatus, in which we could test this prediction in order to do the experiment. So I would do a diagram showing the equipment setup. So I've got my conical flask containing my hydrochloric acid, and then I've got my delivery tube coming down into the trough of water, and this is inside an upturned measuring cylinder. So as the gas is produced, the hydrogen gas will come down the tube and be collected here. This is full of water, as we said, and as the hydrogen is produced, the water will be pushed down and use that to measure the volume. In order to get the zinc, the mass of zinc right, we've got a balance over here, and there's my zinc. And I'll also need a stopwatch, and I will need a thermometer as well. Okay, so if we do, let's do it from a rate point of view first. So if we look at rate of reaction to help us break this question into bits, I would have my picture set up as we've got and labeled, and then I would make sure that we measure equal masses of the zinc, because we need to make sure we use the same amount each time. Equal masses of zinc, and I do that using the balance. So each time I'm going to say what bit of kit I'm going to use. Okay. We also need to keep the same or an equal volume of HCl in order to do that, and I would measure the volume of HCl using a measuring cylinder. Oh, make sure it's a cylinder right for you. Using a measuring cylinder, and then what I would do is I would make sure that we've got everything set up. We would pour the acid into the flask. At the same time, we would add the zinc, and we would start the stop clock. I realise I wrote stop twice, so we'll change that to start the stop clock and start the stop clock. Okay. What I would then do is measure how long it takes to produce. And if we keep the volume of gas the same, we might say 50 centimeters cubed of hydrogen. Okay. I would then repeat this experiment using a concentration of HCl, hydrochloric acid, which is double the first. Okay. Then what I would do is, once we've repeated it, we could then compare the times, and we can show if our prediction was right or wrong. In terms of measuring if it is exothermic, what I would do is I'd repeat this experiment. Okay, we would use the same amounts of zinc, and in order to do this properly. And then what we would measure this time is using a thermometer. We would measure the temperature at the start of the reaction using a thermometer. Okay, you'd add the zinc, and you leave it to react for a couple of minutes, and then what you would do is you would measure the temperature at the end of the reaction. And again, you then repeat this using the HCl, which is half the concentration of the first reaction. Okay, and once you've done that, you would get a comparison to compare the results to see which one had produced the most heat. It might be worth saying as well in here, because you need to make different concentrations for this acid. So what I would say you could do is you could say to them that you would measure out 100 centimeters cubed of the acid, and you do that for experiment 1. Then experiment 2, you'd measure out 50 centimeters cubed of the acid and add 50 centimeters cubed of water. And what this does is this makes the concentration is half the original, and therefore you can see if doubling it makes it work. What you'd also do to check this is you would repeat the experiments, and that allows you to make sure that what you have got is an accurate and reliable result.